So I was not expecting to make a video around Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, mostly because at its core, it's a Wii U port, and we've seen several Wii U ports now. The best-selling game on the Switch is a Wii U port with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but they keep selling millions of copies for Nintendo, so they'll keep going back to the well until it's dry. However, this one was a bit different because it came with an add-on basically called Bowser's Fury, and when they started describing it, it caught my interest, and then the other day I picked it up and I played all the way through Bowser's Fury in one sitting. Yes, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I wanted to talk about it here today because I think this could be the direction that Nintendo goes in for the next big 3D Mario game. Something we're still waiting to hear more about. I mean, it's going to end up being 4 years by the end of 2021 since we had Mario Odyssey. So guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure the like button helps out a ton. And if you're new to the Small Imp channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So first thing, Bowser's Fury isn't going to win any awards when it comes to its story. It's pretty straightforward, and it's mostly the story we've been dealing with since the 80s, that being Mario versus Bowser. You got to stop Bowser, right? And in this instance, he just happens to be very large, covered in like black sludge, and he shoots fire everywhere. So obviously, you have to go around and become Super Saiyan Mario, and you just do that by collecting enough cat shines, which are like stars from Mario 64. After enough of them, you can then access these very big cat bells, turns you into Big Mario, and then you fight Bowser several times until eventually you win and the game is over. So yes, the story, nothing really to think too much about, not thought-provoking, nothing like that. But the best part is when the game itself starts and you're dropped into this open world. And when I say open world, really, it is open completely. Now, there are parts in the game that will open up as you defeat Bowser over and over again, all of this. But when you get to the point where it is completely open and every path is unlocked essentially to then explore, you can go from one end of the map to the other without any issues. And this is very different from what we've seen before because you'll realize very quickly, wait a minute, I don't have to jump in a painting. I don't have to fly to a galaxy. I don't have to teleport between worlds like you would do with Mario Odyssey. None of that. You beat an objective, let's say on an island, you get up on top of the lighthouse, and then you stop there and you look around for other places to go. And when you find one, you just jump off and go there. Yeah, there's no load screens. You just jump in the water, you swim, or you use Plessy and you kind of surf your way there, and then you do that objective, and you do the next one. And it's all so seamless that really, this is one of the first times with a Mario game that I felt time actually fly by as I'm playing it. And I think a lot of it has to do with it not being broken up. See, with those other games like a Mario Odyssey or like Mario 3D World even here, there are times where things just kind of slow down and it's broken up by load screens or menus or jumping into the next world. And you can find a stopping point if you need to. Whereas with Bowser's Fury, everything just flowed together so well that you do lose track of time and you just keep racking up these cat shines as you go between each island. It's really cool, and it's something that I like to see with this 3D Mario style game that I hope Nintendo continues to pursue with the next one. Now, I think it's pretty obvious that this game itself isn't the next big 3D Mario game. It was set up, I believe, as more of Nintendo playing around with the idea, and they attached it to 3D World because there are some obvious things like, for example, the whole thing takes place on an ocean, most likely because it was easier than having to create big sprawling landscapes. It would have to be different and unique in certain spots, or figure out, okay, how does the ice world eventually find its way to the lava world, or things like that. Those sections still exist, so you do have one that's like, you know, it's got lava all over the place, you have one that's like ice, but it's broken up by large bodies of water. And like I said, that's just more or less because this wasn't their big budget, big time sink of the next 3D Mario game. And even some of the objectives at each island do feel kind of similar. Now, some parts are different because they'll give you different obstacles, like rotating platforms as you get a bit further in and get to some of the more difficult islands, but you still have like collect the blue coins as an example. That's a big one. You got to try to catch the rabbit that's running around. You have to try to defeat Sludge Luigi. That seems to be at like every island. And then you also have to, you know, collect the 5 or 6 coins or whatever that are there. So like there are a lot of objectives that are shared between islands with some unique ones still thrown in. However, even with the objectives feeling very, very similar at times, I still felt this pull to just keep going and try to 100% each island as I was going through. And like I said, a lot of that just has to do with how seamless it was when I was playing. But then at times you would have kind of a curveball thrown at you with the very large Bowser in the middle of the map. And I almost wonder if this Bowser was not there, if it would be as interesting, because sometimes I would be going through an objective and all of a sudden it would start raining. And then all of a sudden Bowser would show up, right next to me, and he'd start shooting fire, and parts of the world will change if that is happening. You'll have platforms appear, Bowser will be shooting fire and even opening up paths for you, and you can direct his fire at those blocks. Now, there were points where I needed him to break some blocks so I could get one of these cat shines, but he wasn't around. So at times I just stood there. I was like, I'll just wait until Bowser shows up. And it'd take like 5 or 6 minutes or something. It was just sort of funny that I was waiting for this large enemy to just land next to me and start shooting fire everywhere because I had to get through these blocks. But I really like the suspense that Bowser would bring, as any time he could just wake up and just start going on a rampage. And it was pretty cool because you would have different interactions based on what you were doing, whether you were surfing around with Plessie and then all of a sudden Bowser lands next to you and you're trying to dive under the water around the fire, or for me, it always seemed to happen when I was trying to go around some of those rotating blocks on the last couple of islands that are very difficult, and then, oh wait, great, there's Bowser shooting fire all over the place, making it even harder. That's one of the big things I hope that they have in mind for like the next 3D Mario game, is to go along with this open world with large enemies in them. And I say enemies because I think the next step would be having multiple large enemies. Maybe you have like 4 of them in a bigger map than this, and they kind of roam around. Maybe they'll interact with each other at times. Maybe one of them has like all of the objectives for like an island or like a world or something on top of them, and it's all being run through like Shadow of the Colossus style. There are so many cool things they could do here, and I'm just hoping that this is them playing around with that idea and they have more of these larger enemies in mind. Now let's say that they decide to go with this open world style for the next 3D Mario game. A few things they can work on here with this game in mind. The frame rate does tank when Bowser's going crazy and like shooting fire everywhere and there's rain and all of this stuff. Like the 60 frames per second Mario experience now after Odyssey, I think is a must. And if you do have to sacrifice some of the visuals to maintain that consistently for a platformer like this Mario, I think that's necessary because it was noticeable. And then if you go into handheld mode, it's outright jarring because it cuts it in half to 30 frames per second. So yeah, that's not great for a platforming Mario game like this. Some of the other things, load times. The initial load time is long, but that's before you get into the world that I've been talking about as seamless. There's this weird time where there is a longer than expected load, and that has to do with when you become large Mario versus the large Bowser. It just cuts, and there's like the little Mario in the bottom right, and it's this load screen for longer than you would expect. And that was, again, kind of noticeable there. But the boss battles weren't great. Like fighting against like the Giga Bowser or whatever, it was basically the same thing over and over again. They threw in a few little bits, but for the most part, you hit Bowser a couple times, you just like ground pound him a few times when he's on his back, and that's it. And I thought they would change things up a bit more because you'd be fighting Bowser over and over again, but not really. Like there are some things you can pick up the pillars and throw them at him. You can kick the stone ball that he throws at you, you can kick that back at him. But like for the most part, it was basically the same thing over and over again. But with all that in mind, you know what? Bowser's Fury was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if I can recommend it to someone who is just like, I already played all the way through 3D World. I played it to death on the Wii U. Is it worth picking this up for $60? That's hard to tell you to do that, to be honest, because it's 3 hours to beat Bowser's Fury. It's probably like 6 or 7 to 100% complete the thing. So, hey, if you think $60 is worth it to play a good 6 or 7 hours of a new experience for a 3D Mario game, then yeah, absolutely. Just jump in. It is quality. It's fun. But if you're not going to be playing 3D World, if you wait for a sale, it's not the worst thing in the world. If you have not played 3D World, though, 100%, this is something you should pick up for $60. I think it's absolutely worth it with the quality in mind and the chances they're taking here with the 3D Mario setup in Bowser's Fury. Very, very cool. But let me know what you guys think about this down below, specifically Bowser's Fury. It's new and it's very different from what we're used to with these 3D Mario games. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.